US Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says he will not resign if Donald Trump asks him and cuts rates by 0.25%. Germany's coalition collapse looks set to bring more economic pain to Europe's ailing giant. And against all odds, despite the ongoing war, Lebanese business owners bet on their country's recovery. Hello, I'm Taiba Aydin with the latest business and finance news here on TRT World. The Federal Reserve has cut interest rates by 0.25 point. The US central bank has lowered its target range between 4.5 and 4.75%. The Fed Chair Jay Powell remarked on the strength of the economy and told reporters that he would not resign if President-elect Trump asked him to.
Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
The Fed's rate cut was followed by a rally in risk assets. The S&P 500 continued its climb, putting it on course for its best week in a year. The Nasdaq also advanced to close above the 19,000 mark for the first time. Over in Asia, all major indices rebounded from Thursday, with the Hang Seng and Kosdaq leading gains. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's central bank followed the Fed's move by cutting its benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points to 5%. Let's get more on this now with Nadia Al-Bilasi. She's Senior Market Analyst at Equity Group. Good to have you with us, Nadia. Now, this interest rate cut was pretty much expected. How are markets reacting so far?
So, as you said, Taiba, we're seeing record highs for all the three major indices, and Asian stocks are actually tracking Wall Street gains. I think markets are very cheerful after Trump's victory, especially that he's going to reduce tax cuts, and this is really good for corporations. So, in general, it's good for a few of the sectors, and we're seeing also the Nasdaq. Tech stocks are also really proving resilience. So I think the only thing standing in the way of this bull run may be negative economic indicators, and we'll have more clarity in December because the November job labor market data was a bit suspicious with the 12,000 jobs that we saw. It was only due to the labor strikes and the hurricanes. So I think we'll know more once we get more economic data that will prove that the bull run or the bubble is yet to stop. But also from another angle, rate cuts are supporting the bull run, Trump's victory, and like so far good economic data. So I think the only thing to stop this would be data that proves otherwise.
Right, and Fed Chair Powell is currently under some pressure now that Trump is returning to office. Will that have any impact on any future decisions?
I think the Fed is acting as an independent policy, basically entity. Obviously, Trump will try to influence that, but I think as you screened that, Powell, he did say he's not going to resign and he's going to defend the Fed's independence. So I think definitely there's going to be risks there, especially as Trump's agenda could hike inflation, or we see that inflation rates are rising, and that will impact the Fed decisions, and it will impact the easing policy, which also is reflecting a strong labor market, reflecting strong stocks. So this momentum might change if we see a return of inflation, and I think this is the most thing investors are worried about right now with Trump back in the White House, the tariffs. And if he's going to actually impact inflation numbers, which we do think that he will.
And as you mentioned, Nadia, Asian equities are also tracking Wall Street gains. How is the region bracing for a second Trump term?
So I think for China, it's a bit difficult. We already had news that Taiwanese companies are going to relocate from China to the US and to different parts of the world just so they don't get to have the tariffs thing impact them. And I think it will impact them because it's 60% tariffs and going all the way to 100%. this will really harm corporations that operate in China or from China using cheaper labor. So I think there will be a lot of reallocation in terms of where the operations are happening, and I think that's fine. We're going to see a cyclical rotation of whether specific manufacturing companies are operating in specific regions, but that's fine. So, but Japan is also worried about its own Prime Minister new agenda, and if they're going to hike rates or not, because the yen is actually weakening so much against the dollar amid a stronger dollar because of Trump's victory, and is expected to continue for some time now, and the yen will continue to weaken unless the Bank of Japan intervenes. So I think there's a lot of things on their plate that they need to also handle.
Okay, Nadia, we will come back to you in just a moment. Please do stay with us. Now, global commodity markets are in decline as traders assess the impact of Donald Trump's presidency. Brent crude futures fell 0.3% to $75.37 a barrel in early Friday trading, while US West Texas Intermediate futures added 0.5% to around $72 a barrel. But a strong dollar makes oil more expensive for holders of other currencies. The drop in prices is largely thanks to the weakening of Hurricane Rafael, which is moving away from US oil fields. Downward pressure on oil prices also stemmed from a drop in demand, particularly from China. Beijing's crude imports fell 9% in October for the sixth consecutive month, and a rise in US crude inventories added strain to the market. Meanwhile, gold prices have also fallen. Spot gold fell 0.4% to around $2,700 per ounce, while US gold futures were flat. Other precious metals saw declines, with silver dropping 0.8%, platinum falling 0.2%, and palladium decreasing by 0.21%. Let's go back to Nadia now. Nadia, Trump's win saw gold plunge and risk assets go up, but Wall Street see him as an inflationary president and expect market volatility. Does that mean we should expect gold to go up in the long term?
So gold is already in a bull run. We've managed to break 2,785. The way to 2,800 would mean a weaker dollar, but with Trump's victory and presidency, he will support a stronger dollar despite his agenda calling for a weaker dollar, so US imports are cheaper and exports. But gold right now, I think, continues to be under pressure, especially after the Fed rate cut. We didn't see ultimately a very big push after the rate cut, not like the 50 basis point rate cut that we saw, the jumbo cut that really throttled prices all the way to 2,700 and above. There was a little bit of lack of momentum on gold, so I believe that it's going to be a little bit under pressure, and I think a 5 to 10% retracement to the downside was necessary for it to continue this bull run that has new record highs. So I think for a while, gold prices may be under pressure amid a stronger dollar. And so far, there's the Trump trades, which support buying of the dollar, selling of gold, and buying of major indices like the S&P, the Nasdaq, and the Dow Jones.
And let's look at oil now. If Trump is able to reach regional stability in the Middle East, what would we see with oil prices?
So oil prices, ultimately, the main reason that they're under pressure right now and below $80 a barrel is because of OPEC Plus decision to increase production starting December, which they have delayed till next year. But that this decision itself is really negatively impacting oil prices. Now, Trump, he wants oil to be cheaper for the US citizen, so he's also going to keep prices down despite him not being there for green energy and all that. He's a classic man type of investor. So he wants prices to be relatively below the $80 a barrel, which this also might cap gains in the future. And with OPEC Plus not cutting production anymore from some of its members, oil prices can be affected in a really negative way, especially after we touch $64 for WTI. I think we can easily revisit and test these levels again unless geopolitical tensions escalate again. But I think that oil prices will also continue to be under pressure.
Okay, Nadia Al-Bilasi, we will have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us as always.
Thank you.
Now a quick look at some of the other top business stories from around the world. Nissan has announced that it will cut 9,000 jobs and reduce its global manufacturing capacity by 20%. The decision comes at a time when the Japanese car maker is struggling to revive its sales in China, where domestic arrivals rapidly are winning market share with affordable electric vehicles. The company has also slashed its annual outlook by 70%, sending its shares down by as much as 10%. And Japanese household spending fell in September for the second month in a row as higher prices pushed people to cut back. Consumer spending dropped 1.1% from the previous year, with many choosing cheaper food options like chicken over beef. Economists say this drop is due to the high cost of living and people's desire to save more. Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg announced that employees furloughed during the recent 7-week strike will be repaid for lost wages. The strike ended with a contract offering a 38% pay rise over 4 years. But the company still plans to cut 10% of its global workforce to address its financial challenges. Over 3,000 people have been killed in Israel's war on Lebanon. Thousands of structures, including homes and businesses, have also been leveled. Rebuilding the country will take years, but despite the hardships, some have already begun the process. Priyanka Navani reports from Beirut.
One of the most popular breakfasts in Lebanon is a manouche, a type of flatbread with cheese, zadr, or meat. And this bakery is one of the most popular manouche spots in Lebanon. The owner was forced to close 3 of his branches in the southern suburbs and South Lebanon because of the war. But refusing to be put out of business, he opened this latest one.
Thank God we will stay and be steadfast, even if we have war. Food is always necessary. God willing, we will have victory, and we stay here. We are not going anywhere. Of course, we will not stop, and like you see, we are working better than before. The situation has improved.
Many customers have followed him to the new branch, partly because of the delicious breakfast, and also because they see it as their duty.
His food is so delicious, and we should always support people and help each other. He is the #1 manouche maker in the area. We stay together as much as people can. We should help each other. If someone is displaced or not, we should help each other.
For many people, staying together is key. The ongoing Lebanon conflict with Israel has already cost the country billions, according to economists. And long after the war is over, the country will have to contend with a massive rebuild, likely without the traditional partners it had in the aftermath of the 2006 war and in a vastly different economic situation. With nobody to turn to, Lebanese are counting on themselves and their communities.
If war affected Lebanon, it would have happened a long time ago. We always live in war, and what matters is to keep going and never lose hope. You see the situation, the country closed. There was the revolution, the pandemic, the war. Not a single time did the country become weak. Here we are, open and in a new place.
Like Ali, Jawad was forced to close his store in the southern suburbs and reopen elsewhere. He said he wanted to reopen quickly so as to not miss out on the Christmas and New Year's business, and is still counting on a solid holiday season. Against all odds, Lebanese business owners are betting on their country and refuse to be discouraged by the current situation. There isn't a lot of hope that a ceasefire will come into fruition before Donald Trump takes office in the U.S., but Lebanese are not waiting for anybody. They say they'll make it through, just as they have so many times before. Priyanka Navani, TRT World, Beirut.
Still ahead on the programme, Germany's coalition collapse could bring more pain to the country's already ailing economy. More on that after this short break.
Straight Talk breaks down Turkey's place in the world, triggering a power shift that is transforming a volatile region. Straight Talk, understanding the challenges facing Turkey and how it's adapting to a changing world. Straight Talk on TRT World.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz dismissed his finance minister, saying his policies are divisive and prevent economic growth. The collapse of the country's government is likely to bring more economic pain to its already ailing economy. Emre Boz reports.
Once close allies and partners on the same team, now no longer on the same page. Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz has sacked his finance minister, Christian Lindner. Scholz says he's lost faith in Lindner's economic vision.
Too often, the necessary compromises have been drowned out by publicly staged disputes and loud ideological demands. Too often, Federal Minister Lindner has blocked laws in an irrelevant manner. Too often, he has engaged in petty party political tactics. Too often, he has broken my trust.
Germany's GDP is expected to fall by 0.3% in the fourth quarter of this year. And since the beginning of 2023, Germany has dipped into negative growth 3 times. Once a powerhouse in the car manufacturing industry, Germany's Volkswagen is swimming in rough waters. They plan to shut down 3 factories in their home country, and that may mean laying off tens of thousands of workers. The closure would be the first in the 87-year history of the company. Volkswagen says it's to cut costs and streamline operations. But analysts say structural issues are to blame, with the country plagued with poor economic infrastructure and a lack of skilled workers. Global demand for German cars is also falling, with China's BYD overtaking it last year as China's best-selling car. And as the economy deteriorates, Germany's centre-right opposition leader is calling for a vote of confidence for Germany's ruling party.
The traffic light coalition no longer has a majority in the German Bundestag, and so we have to call on the Chancellor with a joint resolution of the CDU and CSU parliamentary group in the Bundestag to call a vote of confidence immediately, by the beginning of next week at the latest.
Analysts say that if upcoming US President Donald Trump decides to hit Germany with high tariffs, this as part of his America First campaign, it could create more uncertainty and a loss of confidence in the German economy. Emre Boz, TRT World.
For more on this, we're joined by Christoph Herstel in Berlin. He's a former politician and former Middle East representative of the German state television channel ARD. Thanks for being with us, Christoph. Now, Europe's largest economy has been lagging for quite some time. What's been driving this weakness?
There are 3 reasons, and 2 of these reasons are not being discussed in Germany, and that's, of course, a bad point. First reason being the cost of energy after the sanctions against Russia, which have been rising for 30 to 50%. That's unacceptable to our big industries. Second reason being after forced vaccinations that the situation of the ill workforce has risen from 10% to nearly 20%, and that's also not supportable, and a lot of people have dropped out of their jobs because they couldn't stand this kind of force on their personal health anymore. And the third reason is also very bad management, and the government is wasting Germany's money on stupid ideas like climate change. And that means that, in fact, the taxes are under pressure to rise, and a lot of public money has been wasted in these 3 issues. And that, in turn, makes the German economy as a whole reluctant to invest in Germany. And recently, incentives have been cut by this old finance minister, Mr. Lindner. So in this case, Germany is on a very bad path.
That's very interesting, Christoph. Now, the collapse of Germany's ruling coalition is set to bring more economic pain, possibly paving the way for a snap election. How could this political instability further deepen the economic downfall?
The problem is that the main opposition force, and you just had the interview of the CDU head of party, Mr. Merz, he is even tougher against Russia. And he's even tougher in the pandemic policies. So for that reason, the economy is not going to improve under such a leadership. He's just strong in the parliament. And that makes things very complicated.
OK, Christoph Hersel there in Berlin. We will have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Welcome.
Lahore, celebrated as Pakistan's cultural hub, has become the world's most polluted city, recording a shocking air quality index of more than 1,000. This hazardous level of pollution in the city poses severe health risks to its 14 million residents. In response, the Punjab government has launched a series of new measures, including the need for climate diplomacy with India to tackle the worsening smog. Kamran Yusuf has the story.
Even the sunshine struggles to break through. People of this historic city have to confront this every day during winters.
Over the past 2 to 3 days, the fog has significantly intensified, making travel challenging. Yesterday, visibility was extremely poor, even on Ravi Bridge and its surrounding areas, which were concerning as I need to head to Zara town. The dense fog poses health risks.
Due to the dense smog, my eyes are severely irritated and my vision is blurry. To alleviate these issues, we periodically take breaks to rinse our eyes with water before resuming work.
Lahore, the provincial capital of Punjab province, continues to top the list of the world's most polluted cities. The air quality index of Lahore exceeded 1,000, a record high in Pakistan.
An air quality over 100 is considered unhealthy, with levels exceeding 150 classified as very unhealthy. One of the primary reasons behind the smog is the practice of stubble burning, setting fire to leftover plant material by farmers on both sides of the Indian and Pakistani Punjab.
In order to tackle the worsening situation, Punjab Chief Minister Mariam Nawaz has launched a scheme to offer these super seeders to farmers. These machines allow farmers to sow new crops without burning the stubble. But she is also seeking support from neighboring India.
I am thinking of writing a letter to the Chief Minister of Indian Punjab, because this is not a political issue, it's a human issue, and if we are taking steps, there should be a matching response from India as well, because the winds do not recognize borders.
Meanwhile, dangerously poor air quality forced the Punjab government to close primary schools for a week. Everyone in Lahore is required to wear a face mask. 50% of employees have been asked to work from home as part of a green lockdown in the city. Kamran Yusuf, TRT World, Islamabad.
Leaders of Turkic States assembled in Kyrgyzstan's capital on Wednesday to attend the annual summit of the Organization of Turkic States. Leaders pledged to expand cooperation and address global issues. Rupert Stone has more from Bishkek.
Leaders from across the Turkic world gather in Bishkek. The Organization of Turkic States held its 11th summit in Kyrgyzstan's capital on Wednesday. This grouping started life in 2009 as the Turkic Council, renamed the Organization of Turkic States in 2021. It builds on the cultural and linguistic affinities of its members to deepen cooperation across a variety of fields. The OTS has 5 permanent members: Turkey, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, and 3 observer states: Hungary, Turkmenistan and the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. Kyrgyzstan's president welcomed the attendees in Bishkek.
I am pleased to host the Heads of State Summit of the Organization of Turkic States here in Kyrgyzstan. I am proud to be holding a high-level, multilateral meeting here for the first time.
Trade and economic cooperation are a major focus of the organization's work. The states also cooperate in energy, policing, agriculture and other areas. This year, artificial intelligence was a priority issue. International issues like the war in Ukraine have also featured on the group's agenda, and this summit was no exception. Speaking at the summit, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called on Turkic States to oppose Israel's assault on Gaza.
The international community is failing to stop the genocide in the occupied Palestinian territories, especially in Gaza. The United Nations Security Council, responsible for maintaining global peace, appears unable to convene and pass a resolution. Amid the atrocities in Gaza, the Netanyahu government's agenda to displace Palestinians in the occupied West Bank is clear. Israel's attacks on Lebanon and Iran reveal its goal to spread bloodshed across the region. In the past year alone, Lebanon's death toll has neared 3,000, with more than 1.5 million displaced. In Gaza, nearly 50,000 innocent lives have been lost. I believe the Turkic world should also take a decisive stance.
After a busy day, the session concluded on Wednesday afternoon. But as the OTS seeks to expand and develop, further summits can be expected. Rupert Stone, TRT World, Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan.